Hello, everyone. Justin here, host of Breath of Fresh Career, episode 4, making our progress. Here's the deal. I have decided to take a little bit of a sidestep from interviewing CEOs and VPs of sales because I've been reached out to by a couple folks that said, hey, Kane, I'm looking to get into tech. Any advice, any ideas? And I am so stoked to be talking to Brooke today. And I'm going to introduce Brooke here in a second. It's something that can be done, getting into technology. It's a wicked hot space, a lot of fun. Brooke's going to tell her story. Here's the deal on Brooke. This woman is beside being totally kick-ass, like totally hang out with the best of them. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's been the VP of sales for companies like DataScience, BounceX, and Steelhouse. She didn't start at that level. Okay. She worked her way up. She started in the boiler room and she wants to share her story on how she turned kind of like an entry level position, right, into executive level roles with companies that I aforementioned. She, super strong personality. You guys think I'm nuts. She is equally so. Super fun to talk with. Brooke and I will be discussing as well, kind of like what it's like to be a successful, hard charging kick-ass woman in what is seen to be a male dominated, industry. She's amazing. So without further ado, Brooke Partelow, tell us about yourself.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me, Justin. First of all, I just wanted to say, with the intro there and kind of how you led in, I think we're in a really strange time right now. A lot of people are making unfortunate career changes that weren't necessarily planned. I think it gets people kind of thinking, geez, what should I be doing? Is there something else for me that's better than what I'd been doing before? And I think tech is this walled garden, we would say, in tech, which means it's hard to get into. And a lot of folks don't know what roles are there. How do you get in? Maybe you have a degree, maybe you don't. I don't. And that's kind of good segue into my background. So I actually started in telemarketing, believe it or not, which kind of is weird to say today, but this is when I was in high school. And frankly, I'd worked at Orange Julius and I was a Subway sandwich artist. And, Washington, this is outside of Seattle in the 90s. I was making $4.95 an hour, making sandwiches for people. And somehow stumbled into a telemarketing job, and there's a gal sitting there. I won't say her name, but I heard her on the phone and I was like, I know I could do this better than that. And that was like the first step. That's all you have to do is just go out there and start something. And that was the first step of many in the career here.
That's awesome. And now, we're going to get into this a bit more, but one thing I just really quickly want to touch on is you're right. It's a crazy time right now. And it's a really, really good opportunity. We always look at the negatives. Oh my God, this pandemic, essentially World War III on the streets in America, right? Without any jokes about that at all.
Yeah.
But it's also a really good time for people to reinvent themselves. And, and we got a lot of really, really bright people getting out of universities and people without degrees like yourself. By the way, that's like, you got your degree in selling. And that goes without saying. So you heard this woman in Subway, or something like that. Like, how'd you get your start?
Yeah. So I picked in tech or in sales.
Both.
Yeah. So I was at a friend's house in high school, picked up a want ads, which was at the time, for those of you that were born well after me, this is a thing we used, and it was on paper, believe it or not.
We bought cars that way too, by the way.
Yeah. And so first page was the sales or the telemarketing section. So I called this guy, his name was Carl, and he goes, "Can you come down right now?" And I'm like, of course, now I'd be like, why are you asking me to come right now? But then I was like, okay, this is a great idea. So go down, start that night, and realize, man, I can make like $20 an hour in high school. And so worked with Carl for a couple years, and he ended up moving me to Arizona when I was 19 years old to help him start down there. Carl and I had an unfortunate falling out over a cell phone bill. This is in 1998. You'll recall cell phones were like $5 a minute at the time or something.
StarTech.
So I might have gone overboard talking to a boy on my company cell phone. Keep in mind I was 19, and Carl and I parted ways, and it was very fortunate because it led me to finding a sales recruiter. And how the hell I thought at the age of 19 to go to a recruiter, yes. I don't know, but it was the best thing I could have done. I didn't know it at the time, but it was good because this person was able to see, man, she's decent at talking to people and she's likable. And I didn't have all of like the process skills or the experience. There's no way could have gotten the interview on my own, or it would have been very difficult to do. Let's put it that way. So I think the recruiter had a decent relationship with the hiring person and said, hey, give this girl a shot. You know, she seems like she could have a future. So I got the first interview, and they put me through the ringer. I was scared shitless. Sorry for the language, but
you could do it.
Man, I went to Old Navy and got my best outfit because that's all I could afford.
Oh, yeah.
And, I went down and I met a gentleman named Corey Frank, and he, I'm sure we'll get to this, but ended up being one of the greatest mentors of my life. He gave me a shot at this age and just kind of turned me loose. And I think they saw a spark of something great in me naturally, but they never fed the ego or let me believe that for very long.
Oh, they can't.
And they taught me to work very, very hard. And that's really what it boils down to. And, you know, Malcolm Gladwell has the book, The Outliers, and he talks about getting 10,000 hours in something. And I think we all love that. If you haven't read it, you have to read it. That's where I got my 10,000 hours, was in my close to 7 years at that software company.
Yo, The Outliers is an amazing book. It really is. And it's, you know, one of the things I took from that for sure are these, you know, different pockets, right, in the world as to where, you know, excellence kind of comes from. You know, one of the things, this is great because it kind of transitions us into the next question I was thinking about. Okay. A lot of these pros, right, a lot of the really, really good standouts, they kind of see themselves. They envision themselves. You and I were talking a little bit about this before, but like kind of envision themselves in a role. Like, dude, honestly, I tell my kid, he's 13 years old, like, you need to, because I did not have a vision of where I was going to be. But like, I wonder, because the mind is a very powerful thing. You know what I mean? Like how you got a young person, you know, looking to break into technology, whether they just graduated from university or not, whether they've worked at Subway or whether they've worked at a retailer that's no longer in business, but saying, okay, I'm familiar with these technologies. They might be stocking shelves at a retailer and know, you know, an order management system or inventory management system, et cetera. Like, how important do you think it is to really like believe in yourself? Like really believe in yourself?
100% mission critical. Like, it is absolute table stakes. And it's shocking to me, the percentage of folks that I see going through the difficult tasks that are required of us in sales roles, and they don't have that belief. And let me tell you, that's torture. It's effing torture to, like, Corey, the VP I just mentioned, had a saying of, are you laying brick or are you building a cathedral? And if you are just there to lay the brick, that's a really difficult job to do for a long period of time. Sales, I'm speaking of, not bricklaying. I can't speak to that. But if you see this bigger vision of, man, I'm building this Gaudi cathedral in Barcelona and it's going to be amazing, you know, that gets you going. And for me, that's what it was. And so I was telling you when we talked about this before, it's not tactical vision, like me seeing myself, you know, closing that deal. It's just this deep belief of what is at the end of this road. And I use the analogy a lot that, you know, a career is like making it up a mountain, and I know I'm going to get there. And I know there's going to be sheer cliffs at parts of this, and that's the tough times. And we have to know that we're going to make it to the top. It's, you know, if I could give you one thing, you being the folks out there that are thinking about getting into a career or in a career or maybe unhappy right now, find something that is exciting to you and pick what you want to do and write it down and put a timeline. And that could be, I want to make millions of dollars, or it could be, I want to be a VP, or I want to do X, and believe it. And, you know, it sounds cheesy, all of the affirmation stuff of like, this is what I'm going to have. But I'm telling you, I would bet the farm on, if you truly believe something is going to happen, the odds of it happening are so much greater than if you're like, well, I hope so.
Yeah. If you don't believe it's not going to, you know, I don't know if you know this guy, they call him like the toughest man on earth or something, you know,
Okay, I don't.
Well, you probably wish you knew.
Great,
no, he sounds like a kick-ass guy. No, David, I think it's Goggins, G-O-G-G.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this guy is all about overcoming any obstacle that's ever put in front of him, not only physically, but what's more important than physical is mentally. And if you can get through it, in your head, in your mind, and you can see yourself achieving VP of sales at Steelhouse, you know what I'm saying? Like, from a telemarketing position, you know, it's huge. Let me ask you this, because as a recruiter, you know, everybody's like, yeah, you know, I submitted my resume in there. You don't hear anything back. It's this black hole, you know, and it's always been that way. How important is being upfront, being present, making a telephone call, doing stuff kind of different to get your foot in the door with regards to getting into a space like tech, enterprise software?
So it's a weird thing, and I don't fully understand it. If it's these internal HR folks and recruiters that don't understand the role that they're hiring for, but frankly, like, I would probably have trouble getting folks to respond to my cold resume. It's insane. And maybe that's because I don't have a college degree, but you'd think, man, the record speaks for itself. But it's just, I hear this time and time again that it's a dead end, and it's a really great way for candidates to give up on the process. I get it completely. And I think the key is either networking, knowing somebody somehow, and that could be an uncle or your dad's friend. It could be a guy you meet in a bar. Now is a weird time to do that, but frankly, I've met great customers in places like that. And so, you know, it's about networking, but if you don't have that network, or it's COVID and you can't go out, you know, it is picking up the phone. And it's amazing. You know, I've helped start a number of companies. We've been really fun tech companies that are in the press, and we end up on all these greatest places to work lists. We have beer making machines in the kitchen and catered everything and unlimited time off, like you name it. And very rarely would my phone ring on my desk with somebody saying, dude, I will do anything to work for your company. I want to start at the bottom. Do you have a mailroom position? Like, do you have anything? We didn't get those calls a lot, like maybe one or two in 6 years type of thing, which is strange to me. And so I highly encourage that behavior, because you'd think you're one of a million doing that, but you're not. And you know, I'd make yourself stand out in that regard.
Yeah. Sure. One thing that I always try to talk people, you know, obviously a relationship with a guy like me who does have relationship within client companies, who can do just like that early on recruiter that you worked with did, and has a relationship with the hiring authority, and say, listen, this is a diamond in the rough right now. You gotta take a chance with Brooke. And, you know, I guarantee you that recruiter had that conversation. Script those calls, script those voicemails, because they're going to start off as voicemails. No one's answering the phone unless they know who's calling today, because of caller ID, and all these no offense, bro, but all these telemarketers, and script it. So you're not talking about ums and ahs, and you have like 3 or 4 key bullet points that you're going to address on who you are, what you do, and what you can do for them. That's my advice straight up.
Yeah.
What advice do you wish you could give yourself, right, when you got started? Like, what do you wish you knew before you jumped into all this?
We talked about this a bit yesterday, but I think early on, and it was partially because I think I didn't go to college and I was surrounded by a lot of folks that did. So I had a little bit of like the imposter syndrome, maybe a little bit more than a little bit going on. And I worked my way up from telemarketing. And so, you know, if the boss would introduce me to somebody, it'd be like, hey, here's one of our top reps, Brooke. Guess what? She started out selling auto glass. And it was always like, oh, I'm not the guy from Harvard. Like, I'm the girl that sold auto glass. And so that continued on. So I wish I could go, you know, inject into my brain matrix style this confidence that I finally received through understanding I'm as good or better than a lot of folks around me, and I am a huge contribution to a company, and all of that was unfounded and kind of in my head. That's the number one thing I would say. And I think the other thing would be what seems like catastrophic failures or events at the time end up in retrospect being like the tiniest blips on the radar that you'll ever like imagine, and you can look back and laugh. So a lot of these things that feel like the end of the world, they're no big deal, and so try to let it roll off your back is the other thing I would say.
That's awesome. Great advice. I agree 100%. I can't remember who told me this. They were like, stretch your arms out as far as you can reach, and that represents your world. Right. And between that span, I guess I got long arms. They're coming out of the screen here, but each little, tick between the two hands represents like, one little thing in your life. Like, look at how you got so many opportunities there to make it happen. So like, you're right. What you think is a mountain, even in front of you in some instances is really a molehill, and you can get over it,
the greatest, and this is such a cliche, but it is 100 true. The times when I've had the greatest adversity or the greatest setbacks or failures or whatever word you want to put on it, it really does lead to like the best shit in the next step. I promise you that. And if you can, I grew up riding horses, and I had a tough riding instructor, and she would make me get right back on. Like the cliche is there of like, you have to get back on, even if you hit the jump. And it's the same thing. Like you have to do that. And that feels really good when you can make it through that.
I get that. Growing up playing hockey, same deal. You get your bell rung, and you're kind of I hate, as a young kid, you're kind of crying on the bench a little bit. The coach says, Kane, you're up. Let's go. Get back out there. And it's like, you just got to do it. You know what I'm saying? You just got to do it. It's like getting bucked off a horse. Never done that. I'm scared shitless of horses. They are so tall.
Tuck and roll, Dustin, tuck and roll.
Holy cow. I rode one once or twice, and the thing was so big. I was like, nah, this is not for me. I'm straight. I'm gonna jump out of script here a little bit. I'm psyched to be chatting with you because I want to know what advice you would give to women, strong, hardworking, dedicated women out there.
Yeah.
To do what you did and to break into it, and you guys are no different than men. So like, is there any advice you think you throw out there right now? Other than believing in yourself and like.
Yeah. I mean, there's the classic stuff. I was lucky because I grew up with parents that taught me, and this ended up being slightly untrue, but they taught me like, hey, you can do whatever you want, and women and men are equal. I grew up in the 80s in Seattle, a very liberal place that, and then you leave, and I moved to Arizona, and it not that Arizona is a chauvinist state, but like there's a different world outside of Seattle. And I was very lucky that at the first company I worked for close to 7 years, there wasn't a whiff of it. Like they ran a true meritocracy where this was about like, you work hard and you I never once felt it. So I was almost like Cindy Lou Who, where like, this is what my parents told me. And then I saw this, in the real world, this is what it's like, even in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then I get out of that and kind of got into the real world of you're no longer being like handheld by your mentors. And I started to feel it a bit more. And all I can say is you just have to, one of my favorite sayings, and this applies to everything other than this topic, but certainly here, be so good they can't ignore you. That's it. Yeah. I live by that. I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, I'd probably get that across my arm. Like that is it. So if somebody wants to treat you differently and you are being so good they can't ignore you, frankly, fuck them and move on to somebody else. And that's it. And so if you can put your head on the pillow at night knowing that you were so good that they couldn't ignore you, that is it. And I think, you know, I did well in sales teams full of guys because I naturally am kind of like fit in as being, you know, like with one of the guys type of thing. So that was very helpful. But, you know, frankly, I've had sales teams that were all women since then.
Yeah, you hired some kick-ass women for sure, and guys alike. Yeah.
Like, why are we talking about doing eyeshadow? You know, so it can go both ways, certainly. But I'd really, you know, just again, try to find a culture that is inclusive. They certainly exist. For those folks that maybe do live in places where culturally that doesn't feel the same, you know, times have changed with COVID where you can work from wherever you want to work. You know, there's opportunities for folks that live in like the middle of Kentucky, where my good friend is from, and you know, you could work at a place in San Francisco or LA or New York, and that's not odd these days. And so, you know, if you need to look outside of your region to find an inclusive culture, but they exist, and that's where I think you're going to get kind of the best development.
100%. You know, it's funny because we talk about, you know, advice and all that good stuff. And you actually mentioned, you know, your mom and dad back home and your parents. I always ask people, and by the way, I had a client company ask a candidate this week in an interview, what's one thing your mother's taught you? And like, dude, that's so touching to me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I could think of a million things my mother's taught me, but like, that really connects the person. So there's got to be some key influential people in your life.
For sure.
Give me a couple. Who really has influenced you out there?
Yeah, so obviously I'll shout out to my parents who are probably watching. You know, they both worked really hard to, you know, give me a great upbringing. And I always say, like, if I didn't have horses, I don't know if I'd be here, because that was such a deep discipline thing. So that was amazing. And I think the other big thing, especially my dad, but my mom also, it's like the golden rule of do unto others. And I think that really applies to sales, where we're helping people and we're not just like trying to get money out of somebody, is I think a big piece there. But influences, I mentioned Corey earlier, he was huge. And there was a woman that worked for him named Michelle O'Shaughnessy, and she was my sales manager for a number of years. And let me tell you, when I first met Michelle, I was like, who is this polished woman? And she's a badass, and she's really fun to grab a drink with. And like, everything about her, I was like, man. And she was my manager, and she was very tough. Like, we had fun, but it was like, we are doing this and we're going to hit our goals. And it was extreme accountability, I'll call it. And again, if it were not for her, on all aspects, you know, being that good person and being a mentor, being fun to be with, I think it would have been hard on the discipline side of things with her. And so she's certainly very high on my list. And then, you know, Mark Douglas, who I think you maybe know from Steelhouse, is the CEO, and he gave me a shot, man. I was like 29 years old. I got a call through a recruiter that he was working with, and you know, we talked on the phone, and it was almost like within 24 hours, this whirlwind of we were working together. But he and I started the company together from scratch.
I remember those days.
And you know, that was probably one of the greatest professional opportunities of my life, because I actually was able to see what is the inner working of, you know, mechanisms of starting a tech company. And it's not as hard as you'd think, but a lot of it is just kind of insider, like, oh, this is how that works. And so Mark is very high on my list in terms of like, you know, being an amazing CEO of a company that I've been able to learn a ton from. And,
that is awesome.
Now that's the direction I'm heading, is kind of starting my own thing. And I think that's certainly with his guidance.
You know, let's jump into that, right? I know you can't talk too much about what you got going on because you're just kind of like launching this new thing. But what can you tell us? Like what can you tell us about what you got going on?
Yeah, so I've been in, as you know, the online marketing and e-commerce space for 15 plus years now. I've kind of seen a lot of different aspects of it. So I've been watching technology evolving, and I'll say that there is an area of opportunity that's new, that's really exciting. And I know I'm being very vague. But the punchline is we don't want to do an official launch until it's time. But stay tuned. Excited to share, especially with my direct marketing folks and e-commerce homies. So keep an eye on LinkedIn.
And what I'll do is when we post this, I'll make sure I got a link to your, LinkedIn profile so people can reach out to you and follow you so that they can see what's going on. And I urge, hopefully you're okay with this, but people looking to get into tech who are kick-ass, who feel like they're kick-ass, who can see themselves, who can envision themselves doing this, reach out to Brooke and try to connect with her so that you guys can be, on the forefront of knowing what's up. We jumped around a little bit, let's talk about, you've been in positions to do some hiring. I've been grateful to be involved in some of that. So first off, thank you. But so I have a pretty good feeling of what you look for in candidates, but like, let's talk about that. Like, what are some of the key characteristics you look for in people? Like okay, you got to be so good that they can't live without you.
Yeah.
What do you look for?
So number one let's start at the beginning. Regardless of how you get to me, and not just to me, but to any person you're interviewing with, if you show up at an interview, like, have a pen and paper, have a printed copy of your resume. Like, all of this sounds like table stakes, but it is appalling how many people show up without. So I just want to say that because it's like greater than 50% of the time. It's insane.
100%. Especially on some of the younger generations, they're like, it's such a digital world that these people have my resume. Well, here's the problem. Brooke is interviewing you, but just got out of another meeting, so hasn't had a chance to really look at your resume in full detail. So make sure you have a copy of it. That's it.
Yeah. And then in terms of what I'm looking for from a human perspective, I'm hiring for sales most of the time. And sales folks, sales is a tough job. In my opinion, it's one of the tougher jobs in the company. And if your personality is not suited for sales, it's really difficult to make it through the marathon. And so I would say I'm generally, and this isn't an absolute requirement, but I'm looking for people that are generally on the more social end of the spectrum. There's somebody that you would imagine if you said, hey, I bet you $20 you can't go talk to everyone in the bar for 2 minutes. Like, they'd be like, heck yeah, let's do this.
$20. I'm buying the next round.
Yeah, and exactly. And then, high assertive drive is like a good one. I don't want, and when you mix high assertive and high social, you're not getting an asshole. If you have real high assertive without the social, you can kind of end up with a jerk type personality. Yeah. So I like the folks that are into control, which goes along with being assertive. They're folks that are natural leaders, people that a lot of times are successful in athletics, kind of have that sort of spirit to them. And then, believe it or not, this one's surprising. I look for folks that have lower levels of patience and detail. Detail doesn't have to be super low. I want them to be able to put together a proposal or, accurately do something in Salesforce, but I don't want them to be lost in the minutia of like, that's the person that'll spend 3 weeks like organizing their database before they begin making calls because they want everything to be perfect. That cannot happen. In fact, just quick anecdote, I see a direct correlation in new sales reps between their level of future success and how long it takes for them to get on the phone out after training. Like, wow. Yeah, it's crazy how accurate it is. Like, the folks that just jump in, and I don't want them to be unprepared. They've gone through training, but you got to start at some point, and there's no better time to start than right then. And
what about the patience piece? Because
you don't want to be strung along by prospects. And like, there's a lot of prospects out there. Once you do get past the initial barrier of you're calling to sell them something, you build some rapport, you pitch them on the product, and maybe they like you as a person, and maybe they're not the most assertive. That's the person that's like, hey, let me think about it. Just call me in a couple weeks and I'll let you know. And then you call them in a couple weeks. I've been busy, and maybe they have, but I've seen this movie a lot of times before. They're just stringing me along. And because I do have a lower level of patience, I cut that. And I'm like, okay, Bob, no problem. Just, let me know when you're ready, because I'm extremely confident we can drive a lot of revenue for you. We did the analysis, like, let me know when you're ready to rock. but moveon.com from that situation as a sales rep, because the opportunity cost of your time, you know, chasing Bob, you think of what you could do in terms of prospecting new folks. The one way to not be desperate or sound desperate as a salesperson is to have a really fat pipeline. If you have a lot of different opportunities that you're working, hey, none of that matters. And you know, the sound of desperation is never a good thing. So fat pipelines cures all wounds.
You know, you know this about me as well. I took a hiatus from recruiting and got into selling, and dude, I absolutely loved it. And I loved the people. I still keep in touch with some of the folks that I worked with. I loved it. I hated traveling. I hated leaving the house. I hated going to New York City. I just wasn't for me. I was missing my kid. But one of the things I want to address with patients is internal versus external. One of the mistakes I made is just like you. I don't have a ton of, I got a Sanskrit symbol of patience tattooed on my ribs. Like that's a hard area to get a tattoo. But long story short, I don't have it. I struggle with the whole patience thing. You need to have internal patience because you don't want to piss internal people off who are essentially going to help you, you know, but the external piece, it's not even patience. It's knowing. You got to like know, okay. Like, you know, Brooke is a potential buyer, but it timing. That's what I think I related to. It's timing isn't right. It might be right after the holidays. So like I'll put a tickler in my calendar to follow back up with Brooke again, you know, in January or February once the books are cleared. But like the internal piece, like you need to be patient with legal, you need to be patient with, you know, the implementation, integration consultant team. You need to be patient with those folks, but you still, in my opinion, need to kind of twist them a little bit. You need to push them a little bit so that they can actually get it done. Otherwise you're going to get shelved and you're not going to hit your numbers.
Senses of urgency are healthy for sure.
Yeah. Sense of urgency for sure. Sure. You mentioned having resume. Like I've got some candidates that are like, nah, I don't have a resume. You know, I just have a LinkedIn profile, use that. And by the way, that tells me, okay, they might not totally be serious about making a move if they don't have a resume, you know.
Well, you know, I'm sure Brad Pitt doesn't have to do a lot of cold auditions. And so if you're in a place where that's, you know, working for you, great. But that's my question is like, how's that working out for you? So if, I kind of feel that way.
That's a great question.
Yeah, like kind of I'm like, you know, if they really want me to have like a printed out resume, I don't know if that's the right fit for me, but that's me saying this. It's like Brad Pitt saying, if they really need me to audition, like, this is the right film for me. So that's, if you want options, I would say go through the frickin' exercise of putting together a resume. Hire a resume writer. They can do really cool stuff. It's actually a great way to make yourself stand out. If I get the resumes that look like infographics without it being over the top, but being like cool and intriguing, I'm probably going to call that person back just to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I agree. You've come out of the marketing, MarTech, ad tech, MarTech, kind of both sides of the tracks. What are you seeing out there? What's next? What's going on in this crazy world of, let's just categorize it as marketing technology. What are you hearing out there? What's coming down the pike? What are people looking for? So in other words, what types of companies should people be interested in and looking at from a growth perspective?
Good question. I think it's interesting. We're seeing a lot of aggregation of smaller vendors into big companies. You know, they're being acquired, so the landscape is becoming less crowded in the respective number of companies. I think COVID has been, unfortunately, these are the circumstances, but it's been amazing for a lot of sections of e-commerce. So I can't speak to, man, this is the next hot thing in the industry. It's a weird industry because I think there's so many folks in technology that have been a part of it that the new discoveries are going to be more few and far between these days that are actually meaningful discoveries, which is unfortunate, but I think true. So it's going to be a matter of the vendors that can help, you know, ride through this storm for the folks that are struggling a bit more.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, that just comes down to the stuff that mattered before, which is product market fit. What is the value of your pricing compared to the value of your product? Like that sort of stuff. So these are the questions that I would be asking if I were a candidate. And that's another thing is, I think when I got to a certain point in my career, maybe when that imposter syndrome ended, my interviews started to feel a lot more like I was interviewing them than they were interviewing me, or maybe it was more 50-50. And I have absolutely zero fear in taking a deep dive or asking to take a deep dive on, hey, can you show me your sales numbers? And if they say no to that, it's like, well, what's going on? I'm happy to sign an NDA. And if they don't want to show you, there's something strange going on there. And that is more of what I would do instead of being like, oh, I think this is the hot new vertical in e-commerce. Because let me tell you, I've seen situations like that before that have not worked out personally. And so I would go more with like, hey, I can prove by looking at their data that this product, like the dogs are eating the dog food, the customers are buying it.
Yep.
And this is a matter of, I just need to put in this much effort to get these results.
I can remember 2008, right?
Yeah.
When we went into a recession and the recession forced people out of work.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I think it was about 2010 when really we started not coming out of it. We were like, things were really getting back to kind of normal. There were so many technology companies that popped up because these people that found themselves out of work started their own companies because they were sitting there saying, okay, this is what I think people are looking for. But they were happy in their job, and then bam, recession hits, bam, COVID hits, right? I think that once we get through this, and people, we are going to get through this, everybody. I think we need to start working together as a humanity, as people, as opposed to going out and protesting and riot. I think it's the cause is right and the ideas are right, but I think we're starting to see a lot of negative things come out of it. We got to start working together to get through this. But I think once we get through it, we're going to start to see some new subsets of technology pop out to help through things. Maybe biotech is a segment to look at if you're into that stuff. I can't stand the sight of blood, so that's not for me. But we talked a little bit about advice. Is there any other advice you could give to listeners? Not only work, but life, entrepreneurship, etc. Like what advice can you give to folks?
I would say go get this book is outdated in the respect of when it was written and some of the verbiage that's used. So I'll say that before I say the name of the book, but Think and Grow Rich by a guy named Napoleon Hill, regardless of whether you want, and it was written like back in the day. This guy interviewed all of the titans of the Industrial Revolution, obviously while they were still alive. So like Schwab and Ford and Vanderbilt and Carnegie.
Wow.
And he spent a lot of time talking to them about, and all these people, for the most part, worked their way up from nothing. Like they were immigrants that had nothing, and they accumulated like the greatest fortunes. I don't know, in today's money, I'm imagining it would be pretty competitive with some of even our top folks now.
Yeah.
And he talked about, what is their common thread. And, I don't want to steal the punchline from the book too much, but it's what we've already touched on here. It's like, you have to have a burning desire to achieve. You have to have a goal. I will say this, if you had talked to me when I was 19, could I have said to you, I want to live in West Los Angeles and I want to be, the VP of sales and I want to be starting my own company. No, I didn't know exactly. So don't beat yourself up if you don't know exactly, but you have to have belief you're going to make it to the top of that hill, even if you don't know exactly what it looks like. And that like burning desire, which he talks about in this book, is the greatest gift that there is in terms of accomplishment.
That is awesome. I'll put a link of that in.
Yeah. And it's like The Secret, but it talks about, which The Secret doesn't as much, execution. And this is the most important part. So belief mixed with execution and hard work and, a series of good habits executed every day, that cocktail together, dude, you're unstoppable. You're like a rocket ship with that cocktail of whatever it is that they put in there to make it blast into space. And so if you can somehow harness those things, which by the way, it's a choice. And maybe it's harder for some than others, but like, this is a switch that we can flip, and we can choose to do this today. And if there's like one person out there that is hearing me saying this right now that like flips that on, then I'm so glad that we spent this time talking about it.
Think and Grow Rich. Once again, I'll put a link to the book. I'll find it because I'll get that one as well. I haven't read it. So let me talk about me for a second. How can I, in your mind, be more of a support system as a recruiter, right? As the founder of Woodbridge Worldwide, a support system to females in technology. Now, I placed a fair share of women, really kick-ass women in roles and love them. How give me some advice as to what I could do.
Tough. You know, I wish I had, here's the commandments of helping women. At the end of the day, I do think it's about merit. So I don't want to say, hey, go, you know, round up all the girls that you can find and let's get them started early. You know, I do think it's about confidence and instilling at a younger age, like my parents did, like, dude, you can do whatever you want. Like, and I think that is as much of it as anything else. And then it's about the women stepping up as much as it is about inclusion. And I think for you, the advice I give you is finding those inclusive employers that you can tell are open and are encouraging of hiring women and embracing their strengths. By the way, like females can be really, really, like, I don't want to say better than the guys, but like, it's amazing. And I don't know if it's just enough aren't applying or enough aren't being hired. You know, in sales, you see less women applying for sales jobs than you do men. And that's anecdotal completely. But it's unfortunate because, like, frankly, I kind of have an edge on the phone. Like, guys pick up and I can turn on a little bit of the female charm. You know, you could take the bro angle, which works too. You know,
works
like,
in West LA for sure.
I think I get like an extra 30 seconds on the phone, which I will take all day long.
Yeah, extra 30 seconds is awesome.
So ladies out there, take it from me. You can be very successful at sales. And that doesn't mean you're being sexual at all. That's not the punchline. It's just you're being charming and charismatic. And you get, and by the way, I then follow that charm and charisma up with, boom, here's how I can help you in business. And I get right to the point of like, dude, we got to work together because I can help you drive a lot of revenue. And I've seen females try to exploit sexuality throughout a sales process, and that usually ends up being a very bad idea.
You know, I treat both men and women alike equally when I'm working with them as clients, as companies. I you know, treat everyone the same. And really quick story, my most recent placement this week is a chief product officer, and she and I were talking about comp, and she's like, here's the deal, Kane. Like, I'm not moving off my base salary, which is very high. And she goes, like, I have worked really, really hard in a male dominated industry to get to where I am today. And like, this has been a great process, but like, if so-and-so client company doesn't recognize that, that's okay. This is just like you understanding when to walk away, right? That's okay, she says. So she kind of like gave it the takeaway, and I went back to the CEO and they made it work. Like, we're not messing around. And by the way, this CEO is surrounded by just powerful women in his executive leadership team, you know, like, so it had nothing to do with, oh, this is a woman, I can get her for cheap, less on the base. It had to do with, you know, the market, location, a lot of things. But she grew her base salary up to a certain amount, her bonus, the equity play, like, and she wasn't willing to move. So advice I give is like, you know, don't take a job because you need a job. Take a job because you want a job. And don't bend for it, you know, just, you know, hold course. And I think it was awesome. So I always ask this question as well. If you were in my shoes, you know, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
You know, I think we covered a lot here, Justin.
You definitely did.
You know, one thing I did want to touch on, and that is sales philosophy. And it kind of goes back to what I mentioned about my dad and the golden rule. And so early in my sales career, especially when I was doing telemarketing, it felt like this numbers game hustle where it's like, I just got to get these numbers in and that way I get to make money. And that's great. And I did get to make money and that was amazing. But as I progressed in my career, I started to realize sales is really about an exchange of value. And when you make it that way, it actually feels good to both parties, where I'm not calling to do something to you. I'm actually calling to help you. And it's like this thing of, if I called you and I said, hey, let's play a game where, you give me $1 and I give you back 5, you'd want to play that game for sure because it's profitable. And that's frankly what like a lot of products are, is like, hey, this can help you drive revenue. And so, good talking, like you said earlier, in terms of what's in it for them, because we really do have value for them. And I think sales has this bad rap. I know it does. And that's for good reason. There's a lot of bad salespeople in the world that try to exploit opportunity and do something to somebody instead of helping those folks. And so that's, if you can get to a place where you believe and sales is a respectable profession, because I am helping people, and I could give you a list of hundreds of people that would certify that this is true. Like the stuff, when I call to help somebody, it really is to help somebody with my products. It's not to sell them something. And so I just want to say that about sales, because I think we get categorized a lot with like attorneys or worse. I'll meet somebody in an Uber or something and they kind of, sales. And I think it's an amazing thing. And so don't be shy, because it really is a great profession that's noble and helping folks.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really do. I feel the same way. And I really, that's how I view my life, is I really am helping people, both people on the client company side as well as the candidates. So I feel the same way. Yeah. Where can our listeners find you online? How do you want to connect?
I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, although I kind of suck at maintaining Twitter, to be honest. I don't know. I'm just not deep into that universe these days. But you can follow me at Brooke Partelow on Twitter. I think it's just, I don't know what my LinkedIn URL
I'll put a link.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. And again, dude, if you're somebody out there that's trying to break in and you send me an intelligent, articulate, to the best of your ability email, I will do what I can to help. And I don't know if that's us hiring you or me connecting you to other folks, but like, start doing something today, start building that belief. Go paste pictures to a poster board if that's what motivates you. I still to this day do it 20 years into my career, make dream boards. And let me tell you, dude, by the way, and I'll leave you on this note, like when you see a dream board that you made X number of years ago and you're like, not only have I done and all that stuff, but by the way, I want like the car I had selected when I was 20 years old. I'm like, that car is so lame compared to what I actually drive. Yeah. And so it feels so good. Yeah. So even if it's just like the sense of accomplishment of pulling that puppy out someday and realizing you did those things, like go put your stuff and make it like physical and meaningful. And I promise, again, that belief is going to be worth more than not having it.
Yeah. And, I leave you with this one as well. I think that you just gave me the chills. I'm actually just starting every morning to get up and write three things down that I appreciate, that I'm grateful for.
That's amazing too.
And just trying to, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? And, you know what? It's before I even take a sip of water.
Yeah.
So like these are the little extra things that people need to do. To see themselves through success. And I love it, man. Brooke, I love talking to you. You know that. We're going to do this again. Once you kick this company off, we'll make sure we circle back up here on a breath of fresh career and talk about what you're doing and how you're winning and what you're doing to help clients, your companies, and maybe if it makes sense for Woodbridge, we look at how you might be able to affect our business as well. So I appreciate you taking the time out. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. See ya. Bye-bye.